Greetings, I'm Steve Hanson, and I'm a professor of government here at William & Mary, and it's my distinct honor and privilege to welcome you all to the 2023 WMGIC and NATO Countering Disinformation Challenge. We have students joining us literally from all around the globe today, all through the United States, through Europe and beyond. And it is really exciting as acting director of William & Mary's Whole of Government Center of Excellence in National Security to be carrying on the work of our director, Dr. Kay Floyd, in engaging students here and around the world to put your brilliant minds to work in addressing pressing global challenges. And it's a particular privilege to be able to work with our partners at NATO. We thank you very much for our years now of close partnership, and we hope that continues long into the future. Here at William & Mary, we have a long and distinguished history of focusing on national security issues. It really dates back all the way to our alumni, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and James Monroe, who obviously were deeply involved in the early establishment of American foreign policy. But to this day, we continue that tradition with alumni like our Chancellor, Robert Gates, former Secretary of Defense, and many others who work closely with the US government and governments around the world. So this event is very important to us and fits well with our strategic plan. This particular topic is of utmost importance and incredibly timely. The question of disinformation and how to combat it is one that's, I know, a major concern throughout the US government as we speak, and through governments of allied and friendly nations throughout the world. And countering this particular problem immediately forces us to address a very sticky dilemma for free societies, which is how on earth are we going to preserve an environment for the free flowering of information and ideas that's vital to an inclusive and democratic society, and not at the same time open up the floodgates of our channels of communication to vile hate speech, to disinformation, to all sorts of falsehoods about world affairs that unfortunately are becoming the steady diet of so many consumers of online information these days. And what on earth do we do when these threats are coupled with the newest technologies, the deep fake ability and AI-generated texts, which allow us very cheaply to generate images of real people, supposedly saying things that they never would have said in real life in ways which could be quite incendiary or very difficult to debunk. So how do we tackle this? Part of the problem clearly is the decline in trust in the traditional gatekeeping mechanisms and institutions that we used to rely on to separate fact from falsehood, expertise from just people's impressions. And I think part of the problem is that when the internet first developed, there was such a rush of enthusiasm in academia too, but in society as a whole, for all the possibilities that would open up for the free sharing of information around the globe, the possibility of coordinating with others in collective action and civic society that were closed to people so frequently around the world prior to the invention of the internet. And some of those hopes have really come true. The dream of global communication about democratic values is clearly one of the benefits of the internet. But perhaps in retrospect, we did a poor job of explaining at that particular moment why we still needed some kinds of gatekeeping and some kinds of expertise so that you could tell on the internet what was worth trusting and what wasn't. We think here of professional journalists in the so-called mainstream media, already used too often as a pejorative term, professional experts and their associations, and of course, for all of us here, universities themselves, which unfortunately have also fallen under deep suspicion, especially in the last few years in this country and others. We did a poor job of explaining why having at least two independent sources of news was an important check before one rushed publication or rushed ideas to print. We did a poor job of explaining why the training given to professional experts in disciplines like the law or medicine really is vital for their understanding of the deeper problems of discerning fact from fiction. And perhaps we've done a bad job of explaining to the ordinary person why hiring of faculty at universities takes so long, why there's so many years of training and the obtaining of degrees that are necessary before we certify our faculty as experts. The result is that all through the world, there's deep distrust in all of these traditional gatekeepers. And of course, none of them exist on the internet as a whole. There, you can rush things to print immediately. You don't need to worry about the degrees or professional training that you've obtained, and university status counts for very little. And so that's part of the problem, clearly, is that the traditional gatekeepers are gone, and the information on the internet, social media, and more generally available online is not vetted really in any way at all. And young generations may not know how to tell the difference between what's vetted and what isn't. This is equally a problem, and maybe even more so when we look at the way that artificial intelligence these days is being developed. The so-called training of AI happens through the use of online sources. And to the extent that the mainstream sources that are vetted start being swamped by all the ones that are untrustworthy, AI itself and its algorithms will increasingly replicate the bad forms of information, the disinformation, the bias, the stereotypes about cultures and religions and the like. Right now, we have Wikipedia as a wonderful oasis that's the exception to that rule, still vetted carefully by online committed citizen editors who really do their best to get rid of any disinformation that appears. But for how long will that particular institution be able to hold out against the tide? It's a mistake, I think, just to rely on Wikipedia being there forever. And Wikipedia itself obviously still wrestles with these issues. There's another point that I want to add in this debate that I think is often lost, and that is when trust in the online information ecosystem breaks down and trust in existing institutions and gatekeepers is no longer in place, it ironically means that the last kind of trust that really still exists in politics is through direct personal loyalty and direct personal association. We trust only those we've known for a long, long time because we seemingly can't trust anything else we see on the net. The result of that is that, ironically, personalistic dictatorships have a collective action advantage over the mass of disorganized citizens in democracies who are relying on some kinds of trustworthy information to coordinate around values that matter to the public. Leaders like Putin or Xi invest a lot in disinformation, both money and time. And the reason they do that is that to the extent they can worsen the problem of trust and information that exists in Western democratic and global democratic societies, they actually increase the advantage of the networks of personal loyalty that they've forged in their own countries. It's a critical advantage for authoritarian personalistic regimes vis-a-vis democratic ones, which emerges in this particular era of deepfakes, AI, and internet disinformation. So there are real threats out there that we have to wrestle with, but there's also a huge amount of hope. And the reason for that hope is you. It's the students here, the young generation, the new voices that are emerging to deal with exactly this problem in ways which support democratic values and civic engagement. After all, the generation that you're part of is one which is deeply familiar with this problem, deeply comfortable with social media, ready to take on the high technology solutions that are necessary to provide backup for whatever kind of vetting we need to perform, and to call out bad actors when they flood the internet with disinformation of the sort we've discussed. We are so excited and honored to be hosting you and your teams in tackling these problems directly, because your solutions will be the ones which all of our governments are going to be able to look to as we come up with creative and innovative ways to stem the tide of disinformation that is threatening our democratic order as we speak. So again, let me close by welcoming you warmly to William & Mary, even if it's virtually. We are excited to see what you come up with, and we at William & Mary are happy to follow up after WMGIC is over to ensure that we support this important project in the years to come. Thank you.